Inversions, right? You've said this is a serious problem.
A tremendous problem.
Okay, so you've also argued that bankruptcy laws, you've taken advantage of the bankruptcy laws.
I have.
Corporations have done that. It's within the law.
Many people.
You take advantage. How are inversions different from taking advantage of the bankruptcy laws?
Well,
this is legal.
Right.
This is companies trying to benefit their shareholders. How is it different?
Much different in this way. You can stop it so easily. There's $2.5 trillion out there. At least it could be 4, it could be 5, but $2.5 trillion that they know of. This is money that wants to come back to this country. The corporations want to bring back. They can't bring it back in because of the tax laws. They're so prohibitive, so bad, and so complicated. So they can't bring it. So now what's happening is companies are leaving our country, and you're reading about it. You're seeing Pfizer, you're seeing they're leaving our country and thinking about, massive numbers of companies are thinking about leaving to go out and get that money. Also to get a better tax deal. So that's a lot different.
So when you're saying it's a serious problem, what you're saying is the law is the problem, not the company's behavior. It's not bad what Pfizer is doing.
No, and there's no way you can stop it really other than lowering the taxes, because right now, John, it's prohibitive to bring that money in. They'd have to pay so much, it'd have to be fools to bring it in. But under my plan, and a couple of others, but nobody even knew about corporate inversion until I brought it. I mean, these other candidates, they don't even know what corporate inversion is. I do know. I really know. You're going to lose hundreds of thousands of jobs to other countries because of corporate inversions. What you're going to do is you're going to lower the taxes, bring the money in, and they're going to use that money to build and do things in the United States.
Again, so you're not criticizing Pfizer at all?
No, I really am not.
Companies like that. It's just about the law.
You got to pay. Look, in the old days, you'd leave New York and go down to Florida.
Right.
Or you'd leave New Jersey and go to Texas to save taxes. Now, because of the way the world is so different, you leave the United States and you go to Ireland and you go to different places in Asia and you go to Europe. I mean, it's a different world, and we have to compete better.
Okay. This is a great New York institution.
It is.
So is Saturday Night Live. You're doing it this week.
Right.
Nervous, excited. How do you feel about it?
Well, I did it like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
The Apprentice became #1, and they asked me to do it. And I'm just excited about it. I think it's great. We're going to meet with Lorne Michaels today. They're going to come up with some skits, and it's going to be very exciting.
I give you an idea. Pretty good one, right? You going to try that?
That's a good one.
Think about it.
I'll think about it.
I don't want a royalty, but
I'll think about it.
So this rink, right, it was once the largest ice rink in the world.
Right.
Now, this a lot of rinks bigger than this. Obviously, that was back in the 50s.
Well, we have more people. Oh, yeah, they have massive
Yeah,
lakes.
that's right.
Well, they have lakes, in all fairness. They have more lakes.
Yeah.
But we have more people than any other ice rink by far in the world.
Wait, do you skate yourself?
I don't.
Well, what do you do for exercise if it's not ice skating?
Don't ask me. I run for office. This is what I needed.
play golf.
Seriously? No,
I
exercise?
play golf. I play golf. I play tennis. I love sports. I don't have much time for exercising, but I do love sports. I've always loved
Here's
sports.
a question I've been wanting to ask you for a while. We almost never get to see you eat. What do you like to eat? What's like Donald Trump's favorite
I love
stuff?
to eat the food we have in here.
Really? Like what do they
I
have
love steak and hamburger and pasta and French fries. All the things we shouldn't be eating is what I love.
You're going to need to do some more exercise.
I know, I think I'm gonna
Are
have
you like
to.
a normal eater, like 3 meals a day?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I try.
And
a lot of times I can't because I'm pretty
What's
busy.
the food you like that you know you shouldn't eat but you just can't resist?
Bacon, eggs, steak. I don't know. I hear good and bad. I hear good things. Sometimes they'll come out with a report, steak is great. Then they come out with a report, so you don't know what you're doing. So the bottom line, they don't know what they're doing. So I eat what I like. But it's been, it's been working.
How many pieces of bacon would you eat normally in one sitting?
Don't ask.
Don't ask.
Too many.
More than 2.
Too many.
New York's team, the New York Mets, last night lost the World Series to the Kansas City Royals. Is that because the Kansas City Royals are great or because the Mets kind of blew it?
Well, they blew it a little bit, but they really turned out to be a great team, Kansas City. And the Mets had a wonderful season. They've come so far, and they should be proud of themselves. I think Kansas City really had a great winning team. They always seem, and they said during the whole season, they'd come back. I love these comeback people. They would come back. They'd be losing a game in the 9th inning. I think they practically set a record for comebacks. There's something special about that. They came back on a number of occasions against the Mets, but the Mets had a great season.
You've got a son, you've got grandkids. What do you do to make them laugh?
Well, I spend as much time as I can with them. The time has been, it was tight before, now this is ridiculous, although more and more I'm giving management over to my children and my executives of the company. But I do nothing to make them laugh. I just love them.
Yeah, you don't, no funny faces?
A little bit, probably. I don't think I want to do it on this one, but a little bit.
Come on, give us just a little bit.
Bernie Sanders does a monster imitation for his grandkids.
Bernie Sanders, he blew it. Bernie Sanders blew it. You know what? He blew it with emails. When he gave that up, I said, great soundbite. That's the end of him. That's the end of him. By the way, not getting the crowds anymore. It's over. When he gave up the emails, which he shouldn't have given up, I said, great soundbite. He's dead. And he's dead.
this rink, right? You were talking before in extraordinary detail about how the ice gets made,
Right.
the Freon versus this and that. Have you ever driven the Zamboni?
I have one time.
Really? What was that like?
It's great.
What are the things you've achieved since your father passed away do you think you'd be really proud of?
Well, he was a spectacular guy. He was a wonderful builder and a wonderful person, had a great heart. We talk about heart. But he was a very good negotiator, and I learned a lot. And he gave me a loan when I said, Dad, I want to go out to Manhattan. He said, no, you don't know anything about that. Let's stay in Brooklyn and Queens. I said, no, I want to go out to Manhattan. When I was very young. And I came to Manhattan, I did really well right from the beginning. And it was just, he was just somebody that was very special.
What do you think he'd think about your running for president?
Yeah.
I think he would say, amazing, and go do it. He came up with a statement. He was a very tough cookie. But he came up with a statement because when I worked for him, I did great stuff. And I had great success even working for him and brought it to a very high level. And he said to one of the big business magazines, everything he touches turns to gold. And I said, and that statement's followed me, because this was not a father that would normally say that. This was a very tough cookie. Not easy, but a terrific guy. But he said that, he made that statement, and I was probably the greatest compliment I have ever had. But he said everything he touches turns to gold.
So
let's see what happened.
Was he a political
guy?
He
was political, but different kind of political. He was political to get a building permit, political to be able to build a house or a building in Brooklyn or Queens.
There's nothing more political than that.
That's pretty political.
So let's go back to the summer of 1986. Your office, not that far from here. You looked down and saw what? And why did you then decide to get involved in this project?
I saw for years a mess. I saw a place that was under construction, which is the Woolman Rink, and it was under construction for many years, 8 to be exact. And I said, what's going on? We're talking about a slab of concrete. Now, it's actually much more complicated than that, to be honest with you, but still, it's a very large slab of concrete. And after a number of years, I called the mayor. I said, what's going on? And nobody was ever working. They were having a lunch break all day long. Hundreds of people, they'd all be sitting. And it's been a great experiment. I mean, you may want to continue with your question, but it's been certainly a great experiment.
What was in it for you?
Well, I just wanted to get it done. I had a young daughter, at that time young and still young, Ivanka. And she said, Dad, I'd love to go ice skating. But that rink is never going to open. And, we took in 7 to 8 years closed, 7 seasons and 8 years total. And I said, let me look into it. So I looked down, and I'd see it right from Trump Tower. And then I'd pass it, and I'd look at the men. I know a lot of the men, because the construction business I know. And I'd see a lot of the workers, and they'd wave to me, hi, Mr. Trump. I said, what's wrong here, fellas? He said, nobody wants us to work. Nobody cares. And I went to see Koch, Ed Koch, who was the mayor at the time. And I said, listen, I will do this job, and I'll get it done fast. It was a huge embarrassment for the city, because you know what was happening. It was a front page story. It was the biggest story because you couldn't get it was 8 years to open an ice skating rink. And I went to Ed Koch. I said, let me do it. If I don't do it for under $2 million and do it fast, I'll pay for it. And he was not 100%, he was embarrassed by the whole situation. But I took it over. I got it done in 4 months. But people use this as an example of what can be done private enterprise.
Right. So is this a story about the ineffectiveness of the public sector and the effectiveness of the private sector, or does this say something special about your capacity to get things done?
Well, I do have a great capacity to get things done, but it also has to do with the private sector. I mean, I don't know if anybody could have beaten my record. As an example, the old post office under construction right now on Pennsylvania Avenue, right between Congress, the White House. Boom. The most beautiful building. It is incredible. I'm under budget, ahead of schedule, which is what we should be. And we're going to open, we were supposed to open in 17. We're now going to open probably in September of 16, which is very good timing, actually, right on Pennsylvania Avenue. So I get things done. But I mean, another one that I'm very proud of, Ferry Point. They had a big development in the Bronx that was a disaster, under construction probably for 30 years. Nobody really knows when it started. It was so long ago. And I got it done in a year. And it's open now and a very successful
So people
job.
who say Trump's got no government experience, he can't possibly be president, because that's not what being president's about. This was a government problem. The city couldn't get this thing built. So what are examples of things now that aren't getting done that you think you could bring the same skills to if you were president, just the way you got this thing built?
I'll give you one example. Wars. Wars aren't getting done. It's the same thing. I mean, you look at ISIS, you look at what's going on with what we're doing, then we send 50 people over there, our 50 best, But why would anybody say that we're sending? Why does the president have to say we're sending 50 people? Those people are in great danger now because we're saying that. Why wouldn't he send them if he's got to send them? First of all, either win or don't win or get out. But he sends 50 people over there. He then makes a public announcement to the world that 50 people, well, those men and women right now they're being hunted. They're looking for those men. Why does he have to say that he's sending them over? Do you know how dangerous that is?
Your critics would say you've just compared building an ice skating rink to stopping wars, and that is
all the same.
Explain
Can I tell you what? Because it has to do with efficiency. It has to do with common sense. It has to do with knowledge. Look, I wrote a book in the year 2000, and I talked about Osama bin Laden because I watched this guy talking. You know, he was a terrorist, well known. And I wrote about him in a book. And Joe Scarborough said, hey, when was that book written? It was in 2000. It was before the World Trade Center came down. And he goes, whoa, that's amazing. Look, you know, I have a knack for things, and I know what I'm doing. And this country is so far behind in every way, in trade, in military. We are so far. I watched the other day General Oriano. He's leaving. He said we are the least prepared. He was talking about Army. But he said we are the least prepared that we've ever been. I think he said ever been in the history of the country. Now, he might have said since the Second World War, but I think it was essentially ever. We can't have that.
So let's ask the question this way, a slightly different way. Is the argument you're making that the skill set required to be President of the United States is the same as the skill set required to be CEO?
I'm not.
And if they're not the same, what are the differences?
Okay, they're not the same, but I am better than those people. I will do a better job. I'll do a better job with the military. I'll do a better job with jobs. I know my competition. I understand life. I understand competition.
But again,
see these buildings over here? I've built numerous of them, and they're successful.
But what are the differences, though? What's the difference? But there's skills that are required to be a successful CEO, skills that are required to be a successful president. You said they're different. So what are the differences? What's the way in which you'd have to change your game if you were president?
To be a CEO, and depending on companies and everything else, because every company is different, okay? But to be a CEO, you have to be boom and get it done. To be a president, I think you have to be boom and get it done, but I also think you have to have heart. We have a lot of people that need help. We have a lot of people in this country that are not making it, and they're in trouble. And I think I always say, you know, I'm a conservative with heart, because people think conservatives don't have heart. You know, they hear about Obamacare, and people want to knock the hell out of Obamacare, and they should, because it's horrible. And by the way, as I told you at our last meeting, actually quite a while ago, watch the premiums. Well, you've seen what's happened. The premiums are going through the roof. It's not working. It's not going to work, and it's going to collapse in 17 unless something major is done in Congress, and they shouldn't do it. They should come up with a much better plan. But I like to say you need great abilities, but you also have to have big, beautiful heart.
Oftentimes when people are asked about, are you ready to be president, someone will say, well, nobody's ever really ready. No one can step in until you're in the job. Is that how you feel about it, or do you feel like because of accomplishments like this from day one, you could walk in and do it?
Well, this isn't one of my big things, but this is
the symbolism of it.
You know what this shows? This shows simplicity. Now, it wasn't that simple. They were using Freon. They should have used brine. They were using, and I tell the story where they had their engineer for making ice was located in Miami. Immediately, I said, why is an engineer for an ice skating rink in Miami? And it wasn't working, and they had all these copper pipes that every night they'd lay them and they'd be stolen. They'd lay them. They lost a fortune. What happened, I went to the Montreal Canadiens. A friend of mine works for the Montreal Canadiens, the ice hockey team in Canada. And I said, do me a favor. Who do I speak to about making ice? And he gave me the people that the Montreal Canadiens use. He came down and he said, oh, you're using the wrong stuff. I immediately switched it, and we had a great success.
Again, just ask, are you ready to be president from day one? No learning curve. Step in and do it.
Hey, look, Obama had no experience, okay? I've always said talent is more important than experience. But I just don't think Obama our president is a talented person. And he should never have been in this position. And he had no experience, and it's not his thing. I mean, you have Democrats, you have congressmen that have hardly even seen him and hardly ever met him. He doesn't work the system. That's why he signs executive orders all the time, because he can't get his own people to go along. But when it came to the war, as an example, two examples, should never been in Iraq, and you know that I said a long time ago, in 2003, 2004, don't do it, you're going to break up the balance of the Middle East, and boy, has that happened. And you know, it gave us ISIS, it gave us nothing but problems, all right? But then when we left, he shouldn't have left the way he did. But when he announced a date for leaving, the enemy said, and I immediately said, this is a disaster. He announced a specific date. We will be out by such and such a date. So the enemy says, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to sort of just take it easy for a little while. And that's what happened. But even yesterday, when he announced 50 of our great people are going over to Syria, 50. Why does he have to announce it? Everyone now is looking for those 50 people. I know it's politically made. I don't even think it came out politically good, because people said, what do you mean 50? What can 50 people do? So I don't even think it was good for him politically. But you have to be quiet. You know, General Patton didn't go and talk about, I'm sending 50 men here, I'm sending 200 men here. He did the job. He knocked them out. General Douglas MacArthur, you go back and look, these were not talkers. So I think it's, and I really mean this strongly, I think it was a horrible thing that he announced that 50 people are going over to Syria.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. We're going to be back with more Donald Trump, some news a day, right after this. And now, the stirring conclusion of our conversation with Donald Trump in Central Park, where we started at asking him about his rival on the rise, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is now kind of a candidate on the rise. Some people are saying he's like Barack Obama. He actually compared you to Barack Obama at one point and said, he said that like Barack Obama, you're not dignified or worthy of the office that you're seeking. He said, we have a president now with no class. I'm just wondering what you think the comparison.
Oh, was he the one that said that?
What do you think of the comparison on issues and leadership?
I think he's highly overrated. I think he's an overrated person. I don't think he's going to make it. I noticed that the press, in fact, I was watching this morning one of the shows, and they were talking about Marco Rubio. I mean, he's nowhere in the polls. I don't think, personally, I don't think he's going to make it. You know, I called him a lightweight. I said at one point he was a lightweight. And I don't mean to be insulting, but I do describe people somehow well. I think Marco...
You've been critical on immigration, but are there other issues?
Well, no, he's very critical. I'm very critical.
Yeah.
He was a member of the Gang of Eight, which basically wanted to have everybody come in and take over our country. All of a sudden, he went down in the polls, and he immediately changed and got out. He is totally driven by what the public thinks. No, I think he's not... Look, Bush got creamed in the debate, but he shouldn't. If I were the messenger, because the message is great, his delivery was poor, but the message is great. He doesn't show up. Marco doesn't show up to votes. He doesn't do things that you're supposed to do. He got elected senator, and you know the same thing happened to him in the Florida Senate. If you look. And I know a lot about Florida. I'm there. You saw the poll that came out today where I'm beating him and Bush by a lot and Carson by a lot in Florida. I know Florida better than they know Florida. So what happens is... But
you started him as a state legislator.
No, he was in the Senate, and he tried to get the top position or whatever. Tried to get the top... A friend of mine told me, who's there with him. They fought, they got the top position. 2 minutes after he had the top position, he was looking to run for Senate. Then he runs for Senate. Now he wants to be president. I would say, you know, maybe I'm the last person to say this. Relax. Take it easy. Take it easy. I think he's a highly overrated person. I've called him a lightweight. I think he's a lightweight. I hope I'm wrong about that.
Does he have a chance to be the nominee?
Can't have... I don't think he has... Look, you know why he has a chance? Because guys like you, and I'm not specifically referring to you, you a little bit, to be honest, you a little bit. But I watched somebody on Joe's show this morning. He's fawning off him. He says how handsome he is, how good. I don't know. I think I'm better looking than he is. Am I better looking than him? So no, but they're talking about he's so handsome, he's so wonderful. And Joe goes, look where he is. He's way down here. He's probably a nice person. Another thing I didn't like about him, and I don't like about him, he should have been more loyal to Bush. I was told, I didn't know him at all. I was told that he would never run because Bush was his mentor. Bush really helped him. Bush did things that, well, I said, all right, good, because I'm a very loyal person. I'm an extremely loyal person, to a fault, frankly. But, and maybe I'd rather have it that way than the other way. He was very, very disloyal to Bush. I don't like that.
Let me ask you about the debate about debates. What is it you're looking for in a moderator or set of moderators as we go forward? What are your criteria for?
You know, John, I don't care that much, honestly. I did well in the debates, all three of them. This last one, even CNBC had me winning. Did you see that? CNBC had me winning the debate. I do think this. A debate should not be 3 hours like CNN. CNN did that for money. I can stand up for 24 hours and debate. But the audiences are going to want to watch it. Gone with the Wind is 3 hours, okay? Who's going to want to watch these guys, including me, for 3 hours? There are certain things we should get. Right. The room was probably 100 degrees, the one room. Okay. Was 100 degrees out. All these things are very important things for a debate. It's unfair. Now, speaking of Rubio, he's the one that sweats the most. He's the youngest, but I have never seen any human being sweat like that.
But your problem isn't liberal bias. A lot of your colleagues seem to feel as though these debates have been liberally biased.
Look, I thought the questions were very unfair, but they were unfair, in my opinion, from Fox, and they were a little bit unfair from CNN, and most of the unfairness was directed at me, so I'm the one that should be complaining.
So when Senator Cruz says that the only moderators who voted in a Republican primary should be allowed to be in these debates, you agree with that or you disagree?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but I can live either way. Look, I had a representative there. I don't care that much. I think, frankly, I'd go a step further. I'm more of an economic person. The networks are making a fortune with the debates. The truth is, we should be like a basketball player. We should go on strike and say we want money for wounded warriors, or we want money for a great charity, the veterans. I'd love to give, because CNN made a fortune, an absolute fortune. CNN had a 2-hour debate 2 days before the debate, and nobody told anybody. They decided to make it 3, only for one reason, because they sold out all their advertising. They were getting $4,000 for a 30-second ad. They got $250,000. Same thing with CNBC. I called up CNBC when they went from 2 hours to 3, and they went to 3. So Harwood lied. You know, Harwood lied when he said that's not true. He totally told a lie, a dirty lie. It was in all the papers that it was going to be a 3-hour debate. Does that bother you? That's New York. That's called Welcome to New York.
We're outside.
It's both a beautiful and an unattractive sound, you know, because it means trouble. Yeah. But that's New York. So Harwood lied when he talked about the debate, and he lied bigly. I called up through my people and myself, and within about 3 minutes, I got it down. I was like one of the easy negotiations of all time. More important than moderators or anything else. Right. They're going to have big audiences. Let the money go to charity.
We call this the Rink, the Trump bill. Thank you for welcoming us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Actually, I want to give you one of these.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Our thanks again to Donald Trump and to his giant block of